Ladies and gentlemen, very good to see a packed house here, and a very warm welcome to Huawei's Tech Cares Forum. My name is Gavin Allen. I'm the Executive Editor-in-Chief for Huawei, and I'll be your host for this event. And over the course of the next 2 hours, we'll explore how to continue to turn good intentions into strategic and sustainable action, connecting the unconnected in remote areas, and ensuring that everyone can access and, of course, use those vital digital skills that enable us all to benefit from the intelligent era that's to come. We will have expert insights from an array of guests, from industry partners, from global academics, from UN agencies, and Huawei executives. And we'll hear from the front line as well. We've got some a range, really, of grassroots perspectives, also looking at the challenges and opportunities ahead that will be facing communities, businesses of course, and economies more widely. And it's all underpinned really by one question, which is how do we create and truly embed inclusive infrastructure and ensure that we're delivering those sustainable services to everybody, bringing value and impact to all. So let's kick off the forum proper with a formal welcome address. So I'm delighted to invite up to the stage the CEO of Huawei's ICT Business Group, Mr. Yang Xiaobin.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to the Tech Cares Forum. It is great to see you all at the year's Mobile World Congress, Barcelona. We have seen that AI progress so much over the past year, but this progress has not benefited everyone. Today, we are here to discuss the people who are at the risk of being left behind in the digital world. According to the report from GSMA, more than 300 million people around the world still have no access to the mobile network. On the past 2 decades, the communication industry have worked hard to bridge this kind of digital divide, but the rapid advance of AI seems to be widening them. And this means that we need to work even hard for the digital inclusion. There is no question AI will shape the future. But before we can make the future a reality, we need to build the critical digital infrastructure, which include the high-speed network and computing infrastructure. This infrastructure will ensure the future of AI era is inclusive and sustainable. Huawei has spent more than 30 years building ICT infrastructure. We always believe that innovation technologies should be a force for good and benefit everyone. In year 2022, we joined the ITU's Partner to Connect coalition, and we pledged to provide 120 million people in remote areas of more than 8 countries with access to the digital society by year 2025. Today, I'm proud to announce that we not only meet our target, we exceed it. By end of year 2025, we have worked with our customer to help 170 million people in the remote region of more than 80 countries connected to the digital world. In Kenya, we have bring the new digital skill to rural students with our digital track classrooms. In Bangladesh, we have helped to bring inclusive finance to the rural communities. And in Argentina, we are helping connect the remote villages to timely health care with mobile medical centers. All of this was made possible by connectivity. It is an honor to have so many respected voices join us today, like ITU, UNESCO, and Vodafone Foundation. I'm excited to hear more about your best practice and how you are helping make sure no one is left behind in the AI era. I believe technology should carry a human touch to foster inclusivity and goodwill. This belief why we are at Huawei strive to innovate. To achieve digital inclusion in the AI era, we must step up our action now. So let's continue innovating and collaborating to bridge the digital divide and create a more equal and sustainable digital world. Thank you. I wish this event a big success. Thank you.
Yang Xiaobin, many thanks. And a very positive way to start off this forum, not just meeting that partner to connect goal as set, but if my quick maths is correct, beating it by something like 40%. So that is going to make an impact on millions of lives, albeit, as Yang Xiaobin rightly said, still a gap to bridge yet. So let's hear now from someone who shares that P2C ambition and indeed is the owner of that initiative, which is the International Telecommunication Union. So please welcome to the stage the director of the ITU's Telecommunication Development Bureau, Cosmas Zavazava.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Huawei for inviting ITU. And it is really a pleasure again to reunite with Huawei. Huawei is one of our 1,000 sector members in ITU. The development sector has also its membership, which is growing very fast. To begin with, I think I celebrate the theme of this meeting, moving from promise to impact. When I took office in 2023, I coined the term BDT for impact. I think talking about technology alone without putting a human face does not go far enough. We want to make a difference in people's lives. When a disaster is impending, we want to make sure that early warning systems are functional and that people are warned and we save human lives. When climate change hits, we must mitigate and adapt to climate change. When epidemics raise their ugly head, we want to make sure that we use technology to track and monitor and address the impact that arises from it. When climate change impacts agriculture, droughts emerge, we want to use technology to engage in smart agriculture and make sure that people and real people are saved by technology. So the relevance of technology, its robustness and resilience are critical. I want to turn now to my prepared speech. Yang Xiaobin, Director and CEO of the City Business Group in Huawei. Excellencies, invited guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure once again to be here with you today. I want to thank Huawei for convening this important conversation, which I look forward to, bringing us all together to discuss what we mean when we say tech cares. And I think we have to unmask technology and stop just talking about algorithms. In ITU, we have 3 areas of focus. One is standardization, one is radio communication and the one I love most is development. So I leave my colleagues to worry about algorithms and models and to talk about the application of technology for change. We stand at the midpoint of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and the digital divide remains one of the defining challenges of our time. You may know we launched our statistical analysis, facts and figures, in November last year, and we indicated that we had made some progress from 2 years before, where we had 2.6 billion people that remained offline. Now we have 2.2 billion people, with the 6 billion people who are actively online. But we want also to answer the question, when they are online, what are they doing with their connectivity? Of course, are they engaging in electronic commerce? Are they receiving government services? Or they are just surfing the net or sending emails? We prefer to have them to meaningfully use their connectivity. And we want to bridge the various divides, which include bridging the urban and rural divide. We want to bridge digital skills divide. We want to bridge innovation divide. We also take care of people with disabilities and special needs. And we want also, of course, to address the gender divide. Consequently, we must address the issues of landlocked developing countries that do not have access or natural access to the sea. Some of them are doubly landlocked. We wanted to address the challenges that come with those countries being least developed countries. And of course, by some estimates, 70% of the populations in least developed countries are women and children, and they too need to be connected. The issue of the small island developing states, in their small sizes, vulnerability to external economic shocks, and also to natural disasters is critical, and they need special attention. The AI era offers life-changing opportunities for individuals, communities, and entire economies, but only if people can actually access the technology. Because some countries and some regions are least connected, AI's foundation is data, and therefore that compromises the availability of data. And we recommend to have local data, local infrastructure, and local talent to combine technology with human development. For billions around the world, particularly in rural, remote, and underserved communities, it is even difficult to have access to 2G or 3G connectivity. Whereas when you go to other regions like Europe, they are already disconnecting and decommissioning 3G because it's replicated or it does exactly what 5G does. But we need, obviously, to make sure that we empower those communities. We are here because we care about the unconnected, and we want everyone to benefit from digital transformation. We have the responsibility, I believe, as people to engage in digital inclusion and get everyone to have access and meaningful use to connectivity. When connectivity is present, inclusive and sustainable development becomes possible, and the technology becomes a catalyst and an enabler to development. And this is why initiatives such as ITU's Partner to Connect Digital Coalition matter a lot. This global alliance helps to mobilize partnerships and commitments to advance digital connectivity. I'm pleased to tell you that we have reached over 83 billion in terms of pledges, and we are aiming at 100 billion. Let's see what the Mobile World Congress will bring us. But it is not enough to pledge. We have to operationalize those pledges. We have to build around those pledges meaningful, impactful, bankable, and viable projects that we can deploy to make a difference in people's lives. We also believe that creating an enabling environment, policy frameworks, legal frameworks are important, and that's why we'll be holding our global symposium for all the regulators in the world in Turkey, in Ankara, from the 12th to the 15th of May this year. to make sure that together we rally around the possibility of connecting everyone in a meaningful, secure way. Reinforcing affordable connectivity, ensuring inclusive, secure ICTs, and ultimately digital transformation, which goes hand in hand with capacity building for long-term sustainability, are an imperative. This approach is strongly anchored in the outcome of the 2025, for some of you who are familiar or were present, we held the World Telecommunication Development Conference from the 17th to the 28th of November in Baku, Azerbaijan. And we came up with a roadmap that will guide us for the next 4 years, which provides a clear and pragmatic roadmap for digital development, and which recognizes that the hardest part of connectivity challenge is not in urban centers, but in rural, remote areas. And there, we should be focusing our efforts and our assets and our investments. Connecting these communities requires more than just technology. It requires innovative business models, inclusivity, and effective use of communication resources like spectrum, as well as community engagement and sustained investment in a local capacity. The Partner to Connect framework shows what is possible when public and private actors align around shared development objectives and make them move from plan to action. Across regions, we are seeing innovative solutions in last mile access, hybrid network architecture, renewable energy powered sites, and community-based models that bring both connectivity and skills to underserved populations. I would especially like to commend Huawei for fulfilling its ambitious Partner to Connect pledge by bringing connectivity to over 170 million people in remote areas across 80 countries, and is still counting. The achievement is way above Huawei's initial target of 120 million people, which is highly, highly commendable. The private sector, as a good citizen, should go beyond profit-making and save the world. And down the line, return on investment, of course, will follow. This is an excellent example of private sector leadership and collaboration to accelerate connectivity and digital inclusion, and we strive to make digital transformation a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, the expertise represented in this room brings real depth to this discussion. It allows us to move beyond stating the problems we face to focus on what is actually working, what can be scaled, and what lessons can be transferred across contexts. We shall share the belief that digital progress should translate into human progress. 3 P's. 1, serving the people. 2, serving the planet. 3, bringing prosperity to the marginalized communities. Connectivity should enable opportunity. When we talk about AI, intelligent networks, and advanced digital capabilities, we must always also ask who benefits and who is excluded, and what are we going to do to close existing gaps. Our work is targeted to benefit people of all ages. At ITU, we see young people not just as beneficiaries of the digital future, they are the primary architects. Our partnership with Huawei through the Generation Connect Young Leadership Program reflects this belief, providing a global platform for digital and grassroots innovation. The objective of the Generation Connect Young Leadership Program is to identify, create, and model future young leaders across the world who are dedicated to championing digitalization through youth-led projects at the grassroots level. As done in the past, we will equip young innovators with mentorship, guidance, and financial assistance for them to turn their digital development ideas and dreams into reality and into real, concrete, and into impactful projects. Today, together with Huawei, we are thrilled to ignite the next spark of change. From this day, and running until 31st March, we are officially opening applications for our newest cohort of the Generation Connect Young Leadership Program. We are seeking 30 visionary young leaders aged between 18 to 28 from every corner of the globe, ready to turn their boldest tech ideas into real-world local action. For third year now, we are seeing young people come forward with a passion to lead and generate solutions to empower their communities. There is much more out there, I can assure you, and the world is waiting to see. As we launch the application, we are calling on young people to express their interest and join the movement to build a sustainable digital future. I thank Huawei for working jointly with ITU, and of course, this is a win-win outcome, or a win-win-win. A win for Huawei, a win for the private sector, a win for the people, and a win for the international community. I thank Huawei for working with us in a sustained, reliable manner. The theme of this forum resonates very well with the ITU Telecommunication Development Conference, and also with ITU in general, and in particular with the Telecommunication Development Bureau. In BDT, we continue to work with a clear purpose, BDT for impact. This is more than just a slogan. It means putting people at the heart of digital transformation, ensuring that technology serves not just profit, but people, planet, and prosperity. We are committed to cultivate digital talent around the world and unveil tech opportunities for the people. Around the world, we have delivered bankable, valuable projects on every continent, advancing digital skills, strengthening governments, education, health services, improving infrastructure, and supporting economic growth. This has been possible through collaboration with partners such as our sector member, Huawei. I would like to close by encouraging all of you to use this forum not only to celebrate success, but to deepen collaboration and to accelerate action for the 2.2 billion people who are still cut off from the internet and who don't enjoy digital dividends. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much to Cosmas, rightly hailing there the power of partnerships and, as he said, good citizenship in helping us all realise our full potential. And as he suggested, access to full connectivity isn't enough if it's not fully used. Next up, someone who has campaigned passionately for the equitable and sustainable digital world that Yang Xiaobin and Cosmas were both referring to there is the director of the Columbia University Center for Sustainable Development, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Professor Sachs has very kindly pre-recorded a video address for us, so let's have a watch of it now.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Sachs. I'm president of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network and university professor at Columbia University. And I'm really thrilled to be able to salute Huawei at the World Mobile Congress. Huawei is an absolutely incredible company, as everybody knows, a true world leader, a world pioneer in green and inclusive development through the remarkable range of technologies that Huawei brings to us. And I was introduced to the incredible integration of artificial intelligence in every segment of society using Huawei's vast reach of technologies. It's a 5.5G network. It's smart systems in healthcare, in education, in transport, in port services, in mining. You name it, Huawei is there. Huawei has been innovating. And now at the World Mobile Congress, Huawei's theme is all intelligence, AI integrated fully into our digital world. And I really applaud this because what I see in my work advising the United Nations on sustainable development and working with governments all over the world, working with the African Union, working with ASEAN, working with the countries in Latin America, AI offers incredibly powerful tools that, when combined with the great digital networks that Huawei enables, are completely transformative for social inclusion and for economic advancement. We will reach education for all because of the combination of 5G, inexpensive, high-quality devices, artificial intelligence, new ways of pedagogy. We will have major advances in agricultural productivity, in food security, in the delivery of healthcare, of course, in payment systems, in microfinance, in government services, in ensuring that government transfers are provided cleanly and efficiently, not corruptly, not lost in the transfer. So this is all intelligence. It's integrating artificial intelligence into 5.5G networks and into a very wide range of very smart devices. I've just been at the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa. I met with many, many African heads of state. I met with many leaders of Africa's multilateral development finance institutions. Everybody's ready for very rapid advance. Everybody's looking forward to partnership with China. Everybody is looking forward to integrating advanced digital systems into all sectors of infrastructure and public services. In other words, we're at a moment of breakthrough. One of the things that thrills me about Huawei is its outward orientation to improve the world, not just to have the greatest products in these areas, but to use them for true inclusive development. And at the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, a worldwide network of more than 2,000 universities under the auspices of the UN Secretary General, we are working all over the world, in every region of the world, to advance the SDGs. And I can tell you how important Huawei is for that and how much we look forward to partnering with Huawei in many exciting areas. We see huge opportunities in education. We have a program called Eco Ambassadors, which trains young people around the world on green and digital development. And Huawei, oh, what a boost it would give. We have many important training programs and advisory programs in Africa. And especially after this recent visit to the African Union Summit, I'm so excited about the opportunities ahead with the major institutions in Africa, with the African Union Commission, with very dynamic governments all over the continent. And I look forward to the opportunities to discuss these possibilities with Huawei. I look forward to Huawei's leadership. I look forward to every opportunity to work closely together with Huawei and the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network to push forward sustainable development, to make the great breakthroughs that we know can be achieved. Well, congratulations and all best wishes to everybody at the World Mobile Congress. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for letting me participate in this way.
Thanks to Professor Sachs for those very generous comments and also taking the time to prepare those expert insights. Let's return to Huawei now for our next address and see how they practice and drive digital inclusion. And for that, I'm going to pass over to the President of the Public Affairs and Communications Department, Jeff Wang.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Digital Inclusion Forum. Before I start, I would like to congratulate Dr. Cosmas on just launch the third year GCYLP. Because myself have been as a judge for 2-year judge for this program, and I have seen exciting young talent. They shape the digital future. But I think such a digital future must be inclusive. But however, I think we still have a gap to be there. And as Mr. Yang mentioned earlier, we have over 300 million people that still live beyond the mobile coverage and cannot access the basic services of this digital age. But we see connectivity alone is not enough. Even in Europe and the other developed regions, 44% of people, they are lack of the basic digital skills. And this is even wider in the developing countries. Like in the Sub-Saharan Africa, only less than 10% of adults, they have the basic digital skills. And in the most other nations, this figure is below 25%. And these are, the elderly people who maybe cannot use the smartphone to book a medical appointment. And this may be young adults, young people, and in the remote areas without the digital work skills. And they are gradually be left behind by the digital world. So we see the rapid development of digital and intelligent technology bring new opportunities to every person and every industry. However, as Mr. Yang noted, the digital inclusion in the AI era is urgently needed. And we believe that the universal and affordable connectivity is the foundation for the sustainable digital society. And digital skills are the key for ordinary people to enter the digital world. Without this, even the most convenient digital services cannot truly reach everyone. And as a leading global ICT companies, Huawei is committed to bring the digital world to every person, every home, every organization, and to build an intelligent, fully connected world. Through the technical innovation and a close partner, we deliver the practical solutions for the sustainable development. And digital inclusion is a core and a long-term focus. Huawei's digital inclusion initiatives focus on 4 areas: balanced development, education, environment, and health. We use technology to ensure digital rights for all and support the UN Sustainable Development Goals and make technology work for everyone. And in practice, first we develop affordable connectivity solutions like these Lulu Star and Lulu Cow solutions, which can bring the internet access to the remote regions with cost efficient. Second, we work with the government and the partners. We provide inclusion digital education to support vulnerable groups like K-12 students, unemployed youth, and the elderly. Our efforts focus on 3 areas. First, improve the digital access. We provide schools with network connectivities and smart devices, and to make quality education accessible. Second, we deliver digital skill trainings. One example is skills on wheels. We launched this program in 2019. We convert containers or buses into mobile classrooms and bring them to underserved areas. In 7 years, the program has helped 130,000 people across 21 countries gain the basic digital skills. And at last, we share the quality education resources. We support the development of STEM education. For example, with Morocco government, we launched the Digital School program and just completed 6 months hackathon for 12,000 students, and which inspired their internet in coding. Yeah. And recently, my colleague just shared me some story from the DigiTrack learners. For example, Monica from Uganda. He used social media skill to expand his peak sales online. And Tom from Kenya, who won the innovation competition now and become a computer teacher. And Ama is a retired chef from France. He made with new friends online and felt part of the community. Here are just 3 out of 130,000 beneficiaries over the past 7 years. And we firmly believe every improvement in the digital skills creates new life opportunities for ordinary people. And we know that technology for equitable and quality education cannot be achieved by Huawei alone. For years, we have partners with governments, UNESCO, the Vodafone Foundation, Close the Gap, and many others to advance the fair education and basic digital literacy. We are proud of the progress. And the AI era brings the challenge, but also opportunities. Today, we invite you to join us. Let us explore how to work together and in the AI eras and bring AI and digital skills to vulnerable groups and remote communities and leave no one behind. Ladies and gentlemen, let us work side by side to strengthen connectivity, improve digital skills, and build a more inclusive and sustainable intelligent world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And let's dive a bit deeper into that key aspect of digital inclusion that Jeff was referring to there, which is obviously digital skills, and not just the ability to access digital services, but to really make the most of the opportunities and capabilities that that potentially unleashes. And as Jeff referred to, and as you may have seen at the beginning of this forum, one of the answers is to take the teachers out to the students, or in Huawei's case, to rev up the DigiTruck.
The digital era accelerates, yet access to its opportunities remains uneven. Skills on Wheels is changing that. Since 2019, we've repurposed shipping containers into mobile classrooms, bringing vital knowledge directly to the communities that need it most. With every mile, we're closing the gap, one community at a time. A young farmer, never having touched a computer, steps into the mobile classroom. This is how we build digital bridges. One person, one click, one new world at a time.
I came out of the truck, a person who is now who can confidently and courageously interact with computers.
Smartphone in hand, rural women are taking charge. They're launching businesses online and driving their own progress.
They taught me how to advertise. I can use smartphone and I put my projects. I can get customers to come and buy.
The digital world isn't just for the young. More seniors are stepping in, learning to navigate apps and enjoying a life with richer connections.
حييكم اخواننا اليوم في حافلة السي في محافظة شقرة للتوعية ولتثقيف الحقيقة الفئة المستهدفة هم كبار السن.
Bien par exemple faire la feuille d'impôt, comme en France on aime les discrétions. J'aime bien la faire moi-même. Je ne veux pas faire appel à une tierce personne.
Kids learn digital safety from the ground up. We don't just open doors to the online world. We build the guardrails so they can explore and grow with confidence.
Ho imparato cos'è la privacy e che bisogna stare attenti. Non devi dare informazioni personali a persone che non conosci.
ไม่ว่าเมืองนั้นหรือชุมชนนั้นเขาจะรวยหรือว่าจะจนนะครับเทคโนโลยีก็จะไปเติมความฝันและเติมจินตนาการให้กับพวกเราได้นั่นเอง
Today's learners are tomorrow's mentors. They pay their knowledge forward, accelerating the journey and carrying digital skills deeper into communities.
I feel happy that I'm impacting the young generation and raising a generation that will embrace technology.
We had the graduation, we were given certificates for the training.
Inatupa uwezo mkubwa tunaofundisha kompyuta darasani.
Tecnologia vuol dire inclusione sociale, prima di tutto, quindi sia educazione digitale ma anche sostenibilità.
Our wheels never stop. We are accelerating towards true digital inclusion, enabling an inclusive and sustainable digital world.
A snapshot there of the real impact and difference that initiatives such as the DigiTruck can make to communities. Communities including those, as for our next speaker, in Kenya. So please welcome to the stage Kenya's Special Envoy for Technology, His Excellency Ambassador Philip Tigo.
Good morning, everybody. In Kenya, we say good morning and people reply back good morning. Distinguished guests, partners, members of the media, and everybody else invited, allow me to ride on existing protocols and say jambo, as we say in Kenya. I'm delighted to join you in this Tech Cares Forum, and let me sincerely thank Huawei. As you've seen, I don't have to say really anything after what you saw on screen, for convening this important conversation. I think, but for the very practical and the ground contribution to what we think is beyond connectivity to skills, to innovation and to inclusion. Let me also congratulate ITU and Huawei for the Partners to Connect initiative, I think, which is a bold effort to mobilize commitments, align partners, and accelerate meaningful connectivity. As you've seen on the video, are parts that the truck visits or would not ordinarily be viable for private sector companies or potentially make any meaningful profits. And so in this era of connectivity, I think connecting people is not charity. It's about economic strategy, assure social mobility, but also is future-proofing entire generations. What you may not know, and I've had the statistics from ITU, that Eastern Africa remains the least connected region in the world at 26%, and Kenya punching above its weight at 46%. So the context of the track is that it bridges a critical digital divide, which for me, in this moment of artificial intelligence, it's no longer a digital divide, but an opportunity and most likely an existential divide. And so, as His Excellency the President always says, no country can develop beyond its knowledge capacity. And so if people cannot access or develop or build intelligence, then we know that countries will be stifled or stunted, if not at best. The Kenyan story, I think, is not unique, and you've seen with partners like Huawei, we have been very careful in how we design connectivity as the key foundation, but basically building across the stack, meaning connectivity to a student, to a farmer, to a woman, to a trader, to a startup, founder, but also to a public servant who needs to provide public services to an increasingly young population at a median age of 20. Our plan has been ambitious, ensuring that we have a mix of options for connectivity, as you've seen. Yes, the track, but fiber, internet, satellite, that must always remain accessible. What also must remain accessible is the how to use these capabilities. As you know, Kenya is the #1 user of ChatGPT, which is not necessarily a good thing to talk about without young people understanding they should not be seeking emotional advice as the #1 use for ChatGPT. And so I think what you see Huawei doing and partners is quite critical. We've also been building digital hubs in every ward, in every space, so that everybody else can flourish. It's just not enough to be connected. And therefore, the idea of a track that is highly mobile, context-specific, being part of a digital public infrastructure is unique but also context-specific and potentially speaks to Huawei's vision around connecting people where they are, but also ensuring that people's access to technology remains relevant. They can test their own solutions, they can speak in their own language, but also they can in many ways contribute to national development. Therefore, connectivity, in my view, and what Huawei is doing is not about leapfrogging, and I think leapfrogging culture is done, especially in the age of intelligence, where you really must invest in what matters and we must be deliberate. Energy, as you've seen, the track has solar. Connectivity must be quality. Compute must be the best of class. Data must be locally relevant. Talent means building skills, which is the shortest path to sovereignty. Use cases, in many ways, that solves real problem of the real world. Governance that ensures everything is done within data protection, as we've seen the partnership with the Data Protection Agency, but also finance and partnerships, because we know without money, this cannot scale. And therefore, as I end, let me reinforce that the DigiTrack matters. Even in developed countries, we've seen the track still matters, still goes to the last mile where folks may not be able to do that, because I think inclusivity must be a design choice. And let me end by the power of partnerships. The AI economy must and is inherently multi-stakeholder. Governments, yes, do set direction and build trust frameworks. Private sector do innovate and invest. Universities deepen research and talent pipelines. Civil society ensure safeguards. Development partners, in our view, as you've seen in the partnerships, catalyze but also de-risk investments. But also young people, and our young people who are greatest resource, must continue to imagine and be courageous in this very uncertain world. We must also move beyond silos. So my call today is, I think there's a secret sauce in this room, so how do we build this together? How do we build it at scale? Because I think in this age of intelligence, the greatest divide will not be between North and South. It will be between those who have access and those who have not. And I think this partnership is the step in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will see that people have jumped onto the stage and setting up a different set. That is because we're going to move on from keynote addresses for this section and instead have a panel discussion. And for that, I'm going to hand over the microphone to someone you might have got a glimpse of earlier in the DigiTruck video. He was smiling as his face came up. That's the Director for Policy and Partnerships in Huawei, Kenya, and that is Adam Lane. Adam.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Good morning, everybody. Karibuni, if I can also use some Swahili, but my Swahili is very bad. Or Huanying, we can use Chinese, is also okay. My Spanish is still, I think, work in progress. Apart from maybe the only word, which is cerveza. But let's work on that later. I'd like to invite my other panelists to come to the stage. Confusingly, we have two people with the same name. So we have Olivier and we have another Olivier. So if maybe Olivier Gomez can come up first. Olivier Gomez is someone who spent over 20 years. Yes, I knew I think is fine. Building businesses and supporting automation of businesses and help businesses build, I think, save over $100 million in benefits. So you can take a seat, Olivier, it's okay. He actually recently came back from Kenya. He was there a couple of weeks ago. And he's now engaging and consulting a lot of businesses around the world. The second, Olivier Van Einden, can also come up. Olivier is the CEO and founder of Close the Gap, as you saw, one of the partners for the DigiTruck. Set it up, I think, almost 10 years ago, and they've helped, as part of their global program, not just increase digital skills, but increase access to devices. and they've been helping upcycle over 1.5 million devices, giving them a second life all around the world to increase access to devices. And our third speaker, and I'm delighted that Bethlehem is also here from Ethiopia. Bethlehem is the founder of ICOG, one of our partners in Ethiopia, a social enterprise there, where they've been running a digitruck for 3 years in Ethiopia, as well as training on AI and other aspects as well. So thank you all for joining me. We only have about 20 minutes. We were going to have a fourth person as well, I'm afraid, also from Kenya, but unfortunately they didn't get a visa. But it's okay. I'm glad Bethlehem made it. So congratulations, Bethlehem, and of course, our European friends as well. So first, maybe I'll start with Olivier from Close the Gap. Since you kind of started the DigiTruck program a long time ago, maybe you can share a bit about how it started, why it started, what the goal has been, why you think it's so important.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam, and thank you, Huawei, for inviting me. It's really, for me, a very beautiful occasion to be here because, as you said, the DigiTruck somehow, we started it from Belgium at the time with Close the Gaps projects in East Africa. But it's thanks to the program with Huawei that we have been able to accelerate and exponentially grow the number of DigiTrucks throughout the continent, with today over 11 trucks. But why did we started it? It was actually when Close the Gap started like 23 years ago. It was mostly about a hardware digital divide, and the skills development, obviously, as we all know, has been an extra very important layer that has come in more recent times. We had quite a bit of projects in I would say environments that were really on the border of society because of wars, because of droughts, and building infrastructure then would technically be possible, but by the time it would be there, let's say the ecosystem might have changed. And that's where the idea of the DigiTruck came from. So to build really a facility on wheels, as we've seen in the movies earlier, that is completely autonomous, that also has all the environmental friendly aspects and connectivity, so that it can actually move where the digital skills development is needed.
Thank you very much, Olivier. And maybe turn to the other Olivier. Since you've just come back from Kenya, hopefully the memories are still fresh in your mind. I guess in your past work, you've not been focused so much on the skills per se, at least not in these kind of remote kind of areas, and you're more on the use amongst maybe high-end professionals, experts, tech companies. So what did you think about this? Why was it so important for digital skills in these remote parts of Kenya? And some very remote areas, I believe.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. So yes, indeed, my background is mostly working with large companies, with people that are very well connected, people that are fighting for the latest GPU and the latest model. So when Huawei invited me to visit Kenya, and actually, as you said, to visit some very remote location, at least in my definition, I was very glad to be able to witness and deep dive the work that is being done on site. So we actually visited the DigiTruck in a remote location called Zhu'er in Kenya. And what we see here is the work that is being done on site, as well as the appetite of the local population to be trained, right? So we have been reaching places where, unfortunately, for a number of reasons, the education and the infrastructure might not be yet there or at the fullest. And the DigiTruck is really bridging that gap. So seeing the work being done on site by the trainer, seeing the kids actually moving from what I would call analog to digital, understanding all those skills, starting to just learn how to use a computer, all the way to being able to touch the digital economy, the online digital economy, was really an eye-opener for me. And one of the things I have in my mind is now I want to communicate about this. I want to talk about that, because we tend to forget, as we are all ultra-connected, and augmented with AI, we tend to forget that, it was mentioned, 2.2 billion people are still offline and they don't have access to all those capabilities.
Thank you, Olivier. Maybe come to Bethlehem. You started the truck 3 years ago. I think you've reached over 4,000 or 5,000 young people in Ethiopia, 14 villages or cities around the country. Maybe you can share a bit about how you started and some of the stories of some of the young people you've met there and how it's impacted their lives.
Thank you. So, when initially the DigiTruck, before it came to Ethiopia, we were doing a lot of work around tech education, because tech education is very important to me, because I myself had access to computers when I was 10 years old, and then at my father's shop, and that really created a light bulb moment for me, which is being connected to the internet, being able to access information, and started to learn coding. And through that, I was actually able to make money when I was really young. So that was a very important thing for me, to make sure that the opportunity I had as a kid was also available to other people. So forward 16 years, when we implemented the DigiTruck, it was also very important to make sure that we reach a lot of young people and kids across Ethiopia, to also create a similar type of light bulb moment for them. And I would say the DigiTruck in Ethiopia is also a bit different, because initially when we even started implementing the DigiTruck, we had robots, we had cars the kids can program, and we had introductions about AI, because the company that I lead focuses on AI research and development, and is actually the first private AI research and development company in East Africa. So it was very important for us, besides also the digital divide, to introduce AI. So it has been an interesting journey. A lot of the young people that were part of the DigiTruck had actually went on to pursue careers in computer science, in AI, and that's something that we really wanted to encourage across Ethiopia.
Thank you very much. Maybe this, Olivier van Einden. What have been some of the challenges you found then in growing this movement around the world? What some of the issues have affected it?
Yeah, but obviously it's the hardware perspective is there. So on the one hand, what I extremely find valuable and innovative to this approach, also in our Huawei project, is that we built those DigiTrucks for the African continent in Africa, and that it's a South-South collaboration. So some of the challenges originating from that is obviously that you need to drive them or to ship them from, in our case, from Mombasa to some places around the continent, from east to west to south and to center Africa. So the logistic challenges is definitely there with all the importation and transit. So, but that's part of the work we've done together with the underground teams of Huawei and also of the local ministries of ICT. Secondly, I think it's obviously about training. It's about people that need to engage with those communities. So you need local strong partners on the ground. It's a challenge, yes and no. The challenge is to find the right matchmaking between who can do it, who wants to do it, who has the resources, and who is obviously, just like Bethlehem is sharing, has the passion to really go beyond just a program and make it really like a light bulb moment. And thirdly, I would say, is obviously, it's technology. So technology also requires good maintenance. And at the end of the day, we also know that eventually technology is becoming, let's say, obsolete or ready for upgrades. And then there is this environmental challenge. And so also in our digital program, we looked at in each of the countries where we are, we have this completely, I would say, sustainable circle that also proper electronic waste management can be offered for those devices, and not only for the DigiTruck, but also using it in the narrative and the trainings we give, so that all those young or middle-aged people also learn about the importance of electronic waste and proper recycling.
Yes, it's very interesting. Maybe back to Bethlehem, you talked a bit about AI research and so on. How do you feel that's relevant for the DigiTruck and what you're teaching the youth?
So the thing is, especially the DigiTruck, when it travels to, let's say, remote areas of the country, it's usually maybe the first time for a lot of young people to be introduced to digital literacy or AI. So it's quite interesting, and there's a bit of a fact for you here. There are more than 83 languages in Ethiopia, by the way. And so whenever we go to the different locations and cities, we have to localize it and contextualize those topics. It's not just translation, but what does it mean in your context? So it's very interesting because actually the way people perceive AI in these communities is different. Let me give you an example. Actually, I heard it last year at an event, this Mobile World Congress, is a farmer in Nigeria was using this AI advisory tool in in his own language, and then he would spend hours talking to this tool, right? And they were having problems with of course the infrastructure and resources, because the way people perceive AI and the technologies and what it can provide for them in rural communities is usually very positive. So we've seen a lot of that, especially with the DigiTruck, a lot of young people being excited. So it's quite interesting to see their responses and also kind of navigate the challenges around what does it mean in their context.
Thank you. I think as Ambassador Thigo mentioned earlier, that in Kenya, Huawei has also been working with the Office of the Data Protection Commission to also ensure that there's an aspect of how to be safe online, as much as learning how to use the internet for good as well as mitigate the bad per se. So I'm not sure, after Olivier Gomez, you can also maybe refer to that as you think about what Bethlehem mentioned. I thought you were nodding a lot about the AI capabilities and how the young people there could use them.
Yes. So what I have seen as a witness is the fact that as those kids are grabbing those digital skills, they also have an understanding of the risk that are attached to being online. So as you mentioned, right, the fake news, the data protection, protecting their identity. So I was actually amazed by how well aware they are about that risk. And what I've seen is a population that is really eager to go beyond the skills and to actually do business online. We had a lot of conversation. Those kids, they know exactly what they want. They want to buy, they want to sell, they want to work remote. And me as an entrepreneur, when I look at those local talent, I want to hire them. I really want to hire them because I was really impressed by the level of education, communication that they have, and the motivation, the energy, the grit that they have. So what I see here is, instead of being a risk, obviously this is an opportunity, right? When we add AI into the mix and we are able to now give them access to the most advanced expert knowledge that is available out there, I see those remote population as equally equipped on the digital economy, on the worldwide market. They can also be augmented by the AI capability. So for me, this is really an eye-opener to say, okay, I keep hiring people from my location, but those people, when trained, when augmented with AI, are equally employable. And this is really a very powerful message, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. And then also this issue of partnerships. Maybe Olivier, you can also, you have, I think, dozens of partners around the world, right? How do you manage different partners? How do you feel the role of yourself in Mombasa and Belgium, where you live, as amongst your partners in the different countries on the ground, your corporate partners and so on?
I think partnership is everything. We closed the gap in Europe. We since 2 decades we've been upcycling computer devices, now over 1.5 million every year. And many of them are going to digital inclusion projects. Not all on the African continent, but let's say half of it. Well, so how can you do that without partners? That would be literally impossible. So for me, it's all about public-private partnerships. It's as the theme of today and the introduction that we have had from Huawei. and also from the gentleman from ITU, selecting your partners, but also being transparent with partners, growing with partners, not being afraid of showing where issues are happening and how we can improve partnerships. I think that's really my experience, that in a public-private partnership and working also with local governments, that you really co-create the ideal recipe of a great partnership model. And this Digitruck program has been undoubtedly for me in my career so far the most enabling, I would say, partnership model that we've had, because of the variety of those almost 11 trucks running every day. You should think it's really like every day you have the global partnerships going on, from mobilizing the teams, from driving them literally from location to location, even one in France as we have seen. So I'm still not having too much gray hair of running that, so it shows that the partners are doing a very, very good work. Yeah.
Actually, I want to add to that, because we worked with Close the Gap to do the truck in Kenya, and it was a really good experience in terms of brainstorming and bringing it to the ground. So I generally think that Close the Gap is doing an amazing job in making these DigiTrucks accessible. So thank you.
Thank you.
And back to you, Olivier, as we try to wrap up. What do you think, having been to Wajir, then you also were in Kakamega, I believe, as well, where there was another Huawei project, actually part of the ITU Partner to Connect project. That was, I think, looking at more advanced digital skills in some of these digital hubs that the ambassador referenced earlier. They also, I think, were using AI there, right? How was that transforming what they were doing? And that was more on the job side, I think, right?
Yes, so I also had the chance to visit a different location in Kenya where they have what I would call an ICT hub. And I had a chance to discuss with a number of people who are now beyond the training phase. They are actually doing business with the skills and the infrastructure that is provided to them. I give you a practical example. I talked to a lady who is selling fertilizer online, and she's able to manage the whole circle, the whole life cycle, all the way to being paid. They have a local way of being paid. I think it's called M-Pesa. So basically money in their pocket all the way. And this is extremely amazing to see how they are able to use the infrastructure, how they've been trained, and also how they now understand how to use AI to be able to augment themselves and close some of the gaps, for example, writing a letter or doing some more advanced things. So I think what's really, really important here is to understand that once we enable the infrastructure and we enable the skills, those kids, I call them kids because I'm old, are really eager to learn how to utilize AI to augment themselves. And we've seen examples of people who are really able to do that, right? So we are in, let's say, developed country in Europe, able to use AI. Everyone is, all the way to, we talked about vibe coding, we talk about Python, I mean, very advanced stuff in very remote location, right? So this is really exciting. And I repeat, right, when I talk to some of those people, I see myself, hiring them in my project team and working with them. No problem with that.
I want to leave maybe the last word to Bethlehem. What's your plan now with ICOG going forward, and how are you planning to expand the impact, and as DigiTruck evolves in Ethiopia in the next couple of years, to adapt to this new world, as I think the two Oliviers have been talking about it?
So all of our work that we do has been, to grow the talent in Ethiopia. Because when we initially started, we were developing solutions for companies abroad, right? And I would say that the talent that we have is really good. But how can we do this at scale, right? How can we reach more people? So we initially started doing a robo-soccer competition in universities so that people can think about, okay, how can you use computer vision but also a bit of like AI so that robots can play soccer. But then we saw that the gap didn't stop in the universities. We needed to go to secondary schools, to primary schools, to, as I said, to create that light bulb moment and think about a career in computer science and AI. And especially now that things are evolving in terms of what type of skill sets do you actually need. You need to improve more on your communication, how you manage your projects. And as Olivier has said, you know, a lot of things are getting easier when it comes to coding and programming. So kind of understanding the type of skill sets that you need is constantly evolving, and I do believe that you know, as the DigiTruck also evolves, and you know, we'll be able to deliver those kind of skill sets to more people, which makes sure that we have people that are ready to adapt to you know, to an ever-evolving landscape that is, you know, tech and AI. So we hope to do a lot more of that with the DigiTruck, reach more people, but also at the same time evolve and contextualize what is needed on that specific, I would say, decade is a long time, but year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's I think a really, really good way to wrap this up. We've come to the end of our time. I want to thank everyone for listening. Thank Olivier and Bethlehem for your time and your comments. And now hand back to Gavin. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
But very encouraging foundations for future success clearly being built there. And on the subject of the future, where does digital inclusivity go next? And to address that is our next keynote speaker. And she is the executive for sustainability and shared value at the largest mobile network operator in Africa, and indeed one of the largest in the world, the MTN Group, and that is Marina Madala.
In MTN, I think we have our own language. And so we say yellow, a warm yellow from MTN. I think good morning and thank you so much to the Huawei colleague. And once again, I stand on all existing protocols. We thank you for this conversation. To the Huawei colleagues, we think is really critical. And I think we're at a defining point in our history, particularly from an industry perspective. And we know the theme of this year's MWC speaks a lot to AI and the power that it brings. And I think it can have a rapidly, it can become a rapidly transformational, foundational infrastructure for healthcare, for education, for agriculture, finance, and public services, and much more. Now, we're already starting to see in anticipation how it's reshaping economies. And I think the simple truth we need to confront is that access to connectivity, especially on the African continent, is currently unequal. That means access to opportunities will be also unequal if we are not deliberate about it. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that connectivity is not a privilege. It's an economic infrastructure. It's really critical. According to the GSMA, mobile broadband now reaches the majority of the global population. In sub-Saharan Africa, the coverage has expanded significantly over the decades, and I think we need to take a moment to reflect on that. Yet the challenges continue to evolve. The coverage gap is narrowing, but the usage gap remains substantial. Hundreds of millions of people live within reach of a network, but are not using the mobile internet. Now, these reasons are consistent. Devices remain unaffordable for many households. Data costs remain high relative to household income. Digital literacy gaps persist, as a lot of the panelists before me have spoken about. And then rural populations face infrastructure and energy constraints that hinders their ability to be connected. All this matters and needs to be viewed from a particular lens where you start to see Africa's population living predominantly in rural and peri-urban areas. This means that a lot of these communities remaining excluded simply by the constraints of structural levels and infrastructure. A lot of the infrastructure is geared towards urban cities and most often than not leaves rural communities behind. Digital inclusion is therefore not a social conversation. It's an economic, competitive conversation. And at MTN, we operate in some of the most dynamic, some of the most exciting markets across this beautiful continent. And our experience is clear. Sustainable growth comes from expanding participation. And we focus particularly on many different aspects, but I'm going to touch on 3 today. Firstly is expanding rural connectivity, which is absolutely critical, looking at the demographics that I described before. Second, driving device affordability. And then thirdly, building digital and future skills and capabilities. Now, these are not separate. They're actually mutually exclusive and they reinforce one another. Now, starting off particularly on rural connectivity. So I think when it comes to rural connectivity, most often than not, rural connectivity sites are deemed to be not commercially viable, which makes this quite challenging for a lot of mobile operators, ISPs and the likes. And I think when it comes to underserved communities, it really requires us to think differently about infrastructures. And I think already Jeff just before touched on some of the collaborations that MTN particularly has and an example of the Rural Star with Huawei. Why that's important is that it really brings about sites that are energy efficient, sites that have simplified and lower costs, which you can imagine that the challenge in a lot of these rural communities, the infrastructure, the roads are sometimes not there, the electricity is not there. So bringing these cost-effective solutions are really critical. And also a lot of the time, there's a lot of infrastructure sharing, which enables and enhances the competitiveness of such sites. And then most often than not, they come with obviously solar powered because of the lack of electricity in a lot of these areas. And I think these solutions have been really essential. They've reached over 20 million people through MTN's rural broadband program. And these are starting to show us, a lot of the models are starting to show us that if you design it correctly, you use the most efficient technologies, you bring in, solutions for rural, but that you complement that with affordable devices, as well as greater digital literacy and understanding of how to use the device, how to navigate things. You actually, and we've got case studies in particular, I want to highlight Cameroon and Uganda, where we've seen the commercial viability of such sites actually increasing, just simply by not just putting a site in place, but by investing in digital literacy and affordable devices to complement that effort. And that really shows then the true power and increases the usage. And I think that's really essential because if you think about these rural communities, a lot of them are dependent on agriculture and the like. So you're now starting to connect people that can be able to go to market and to bridge the gap just simply by being connected. The second that I'll touch on is on device affordability. And I think most of us always look out for the GSMA's report on the state of mobile industry, and we know the two biggest barriers to digital and financial inclusion is really device affordability is one of the big ones. And I think coverage without a device is exclusion. I always describe a device as the keys to the kingdom of the internet. Nothing is possible without a device. So I think we need to acknowledge that moment, that in many of our markets, smartphones represent a significant portion of monthly income, both from the cost of the actual device, but also data availability. And I think over the years, through different partnerships, MTN has looked at entry-level smartphone partnerships, structured payment methods, bundled plus data offering, and targeted affordability campaigns, because all of it together really starts to bridge, to reduce the total cost of ownership and to really accelerate smartphone penetration. And I think without these affordable devices, you can imagine the type of technologies we're talking about now, of AI and the likes, will only be possible through the use of affordable devices, particularly smartphones, which is a clear distinction that we need to make. The third one, which I mentioned, I'll touch on, is really around digital literacy and digital skills. And I think literacy is often spoken about because you absolutely cannot connect, and the fundamentals of literacy is critical. And I think that many speakers have already spoken about the fact that the moment you digitally enhance someone's literacy, they're better able to be more economically active. And I think when it comes to digital capabilities, we need to recognize that we have to go beyond literacy towards skills of the future, because especially on the African continent, young Africans will remain behind in this digital revolution that's taking place if we're not deliberate about skilling. So MTN, about 3 years ago, launched the MTN Skills Academy, which is live in 12 countries all over the continent, available in English, French, and the likes. And what we see there is that digital literacy, fundamental building blocks are still required. Very interesting to see that young Africans are choosing basic literacy, but also financial literacy as some of the top type of courses that they access from a basic skills perspective. But what we also see is more advanced to intermediary courses, which touches on aspects like nano degrees, which are a lot faster to upskill than a traditional university institution. So we believe that those that can go to university should go, but we also believe that we should provide alternative for those that can't afford to go. And so we are seeing a lot of young people picking courses like cybersecurity, data science, artificial intelligence, and the likes. And you see a real hunger and a thirst to bridge the challenge that lies in upskilling and for the future. So I think it's time we need to produce at scale digitally literate citizens. And I think last but not least, as I come towards the end, I think when we speak about artificial intelligence, it really is a conversation that connectivity is the building block, and we need to build on that going forward. And I think that if you look at it, networks and connectivity, especially for rural remote communities, devices, skills, and the likes are definitely the building blocks, but they're not the end goal. They simply are enablers. So the real opportunity lies in AI for development. And it's when we use artificial intelligence to transform sectors that we'll see the fundamentals of Africa's growth shifting. If we imagine education, having AI-enabled personal learning, curriculum support, and language localization, then you see the outcomes changing. When you look at healthcare and you see AI-assisted diagnosis, predictability, and greater access to quality healthcare, you'll see healthcare be transformed. When you look at agriculture sector and you see AI-driven weather modeling, crop monitoring and market intelligence, you start to see food security being transformed across the continent, and much more. I won't go into further details. And I think what's really critical is that none of this is possible without the right enabling environment and regulation. So we need, as a sector, as all partners within this ecosystem, we need regulatory stability to unlock long-term capital. We need fiscal frameworks that reduce the cost of devices, of data, and the likes. And then we need legislation that supports infrastructure sharing, incentivize rural investments, because that's when we're going to see transformation. And I think as I come to a close, a lot of it has been said that no single player can close this gap alone. It's going to take collaboration, and I think Huawei has demonstrated multiple forms of collaboration on this platform, and an ecosystem of partnerships is required to really accelerate development, optimize rural economies, and enhance network capabilities and empower communities. Now, when you look at connectivity, as I mentioned before, connectivity is not a privilege and it's no longer optional. Connectivity is fundamental to every single part of society. And at MTN, we believe that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. It's not a privilege. It should be accessible to all. And it's then that we build the building blocks for this next frontier of Africa, of the global world, one that is far more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marina. And in fact, we'll see Marina again in a few minutes later on in the forum, so perhaps develop some of those themes. Now, as we've been hearing, Huawei is obviously committed to sustainable inclusivity and connecting the unconnected, and in fact is constantly innovating to deliver digital services to those remote areas. So to expand a bit on that is our next speaker to explore those initiatives that Huawei is coming up with. Can I please hand over the microphone and the stage to the Vice President of Huawei's wireless network product line, Zheng Chuang.
Good morning, everyone. I think there are still a couple of minutes to noon time. I should say thanks to Marina because his presentation actually has get us to understand how important it is that the cost of the infrastructure for connect the unconnect. And as time being, my background, I'm in charge of both microwave and LTE wireless. And for this topic, I'm really delighted to have this topic here because we are not talking about too much about the BLS, the AI, the 5G. Actually, what we are going to talk is the technology for inclusive connectivity. So I trust it's also the reason that you have me here because the microwave, the transmission, wireless transmission technology, LTE, and WCDMA, the wireless access technology, are the most important and proper technology for the connectivity. So you may hear that my Chinese, my pronunciation is very Chinese. I prepared a slide and smooth our conversation. And yes, we repeatedly say that there is a large amount of population that stay unconnected, but we try to break down. And the reason I think is very complex. As Marina said, that sometimes it's because the unaffordable smartphone. Sometimes it's because of the coverage. So today, what I'm going to talk is the technology for the gray part. we see that actually there are still roughly 300 million people that they cannot get access to the modern network. It's because of the poor coverage. But I think I actually have talked to many operators and many government, and I trust it's not because they are not willing to provide the coverage to this area. I think it's because we lack of the suitable technology, the affordable technology to provide the coverage to this area. So it's the right time for us. And Huawei is also endeavor to invest in such kind of technology where we, simplify, easy to deployment, easy to maintenance. So before I reach the technology, I would like to say some challenges why it's not affordable. Sometimes it's because of the electricity. We lack of or constraint on the electricity. Sometimes it's because the transmission. Of course, we have transmission technology. We have microwave and we have satellite, but the question is like the fiber. You just cannot access fiber everywhere, especially in a remote area. And sometimes, as we mentioned, that is they actually constrained by the infrastructure, like the tower. So how we address this technology? Let's actually approach to this maneuver. So over the past decade, and Huawei keep investing in such kind of technology. By far, actually, we have managed to fully release a portfolio for different scenarios. So you can see that there are three solutions. So this solution, there is one common point is very simplified. So no need fiber, and we use like the. Do we have someone here? Yes, this is what I'm going to introduce today. But from the left part, you can see that 2017 that we call it Zhu'er star. You can see that we use microwave as the transmission, and we use solar panel and for electricity. And this one is actually suitable for roughly 3,000 to 5,000 people. But we can see that microwave sometimes is also not available because microwave is such kind of technology. One thing is very important, they require light of sight. So that means that these 2 points need to actually could be, there is no obstacle between the links. And so that's why actually 2021, we further reduce the complexity and the configuration of the we create a Zhu'er link, but now we moved here. This one is actually we are going to release this solution this year. This one is, you can see that why we managed to say this one can satisfy the needed operator that to deploy for the village or for the area that the population is roughly less than 3,000. And because we actually changed the tower infrastructure to pole from 12 meters to 30 meters. This pole where we simplify, just a pole. And we change the electricity, the power supply to solar panel, just to very small solar panel that can actually help this site to work roughly 48 hours. And together with some software features, we can further prolong the working time to roughly 3 days to 4 days. And the third one is, as I mentioned, that microwave sometimes is also not available. So we use one wireless technology. We create relay. Relay, what does relay means? What relay actually, it's just let this site transmission part work like a terminal, like a cell phone. So it's just a cell phone, So that you can imagine that you actually no need to worry about the obstacles, no need to worry about the distance, because wireless technology can actually, this site actually can, the transmission distance could be actually as long as roughly 30 kilometers. One story is why name is Zhu'er call. From a technical point of view, I think COW means safely over wireless. But this call actually also have another tremendous meanings, because we hope such kind of solution actually could be as the call for the meaning of the call for the farmers. It's meanings like the wheels, it means like the tools, and also means like the future. So I'm very glad to see this Zhu'er call, this solution actually is widely accepted by the operator and by our partners. And I just put two application cases here. This is Zambia. So after the pork, after trial, the local government, they managed to say that on top of this coverage, this technology, and they actually improve or change the life of the people there. They start to connect to network, and they start to have more job opportunity. They even can actually enjoy the healthcare, remote healthcare, remote education. So after we prove the value, and we also reach agreement here, is that this year we are going to copy this solution from one site to 100 sites and get thousands, tens of thousands, and people and connect to the network. And also this is in Nigeria. I actually have been there many times, and we know that how difficult that it is for the people in the rural, remote rural, and the same. And from another angle, we can say that for the meanings, the values for the operators, because this solution is further simplified. So we just maybe one day, you know that actually you want to build a site for the rural that you spend hours, days on the way. And the delivery cost is also one concern. So by simplifying the solution, that we can manage to actually roll out the site within one day. It's actually, to be honest, with tremendous ideas. And also you can say that for operators, the ROI, the return of investment actually could be short to roughly 1 year or 2 years. And the third one is the same, as I mentioned that, because we actually simplify the hardware, simplify the software, and so duration of the working time actually get longer. So we are very glad to say that, as I mentioned here, from the south to the east, from north to west, and we managed to light up a lot of villages, and in Africa, in Latin America, and in South Africa, and also even in China, and so Huawei, our culture. There is one sentence like we want to facilitate. We want to enrich the people's life by provide the technology, connect the unconnected. So I also want to say something here is let us stay together, move forward, and provide those affordable and suitable solution and for over the world. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, James. I will now pass on to the host of this second panel. She's the Chief Communications Officer for the IMD Business School. So please welcome Delia Fisher.
Thank you, Gavin. It's a great pleasure. As we heard this morning, we spent a lot of time not only talking about the seeds that were planted to taking Yap, but we also spent to look at how we connect the unconnected. The pledges made, the infrastructure built, the great classrooms on wheels that are going across the channels on that, the technologies deployed. And that work matters enormously. We have seen great examples of the impact you generate across the continents, but we also now living through the most significant technological transformation in human history. Since 2013, there has been $1.3 trillion deployed into AI, and another $5 trillion US dollars in infrastructure on the way. Yet, this entire revolution is unfolding on profoundly uneven ground, as we've heard. AI is not arriving, it is here, as we heard across all. It's no longer about how to connect people, but it's actually how do we ensure that people stay above the algorithm and not below? How do we see that people really deploy AI as an amplifier for their agency and not just simply direct it as a tool where they don't feel agency to have it? And that will be the framing lens for our last conversation here at the Tech Cares Forum. And I cannot think about better panelists than the ones we have here to discuss and deep dive onto the topic. Sylvia Paul, she's the Senior Gender and Youth Advisor to the ITU Secretary General and the head of the Gender and Youth Office at the International Telecommunication Union. She's also returning to Barcelona, where she competed in the 1992 Olympic Games. So she's an Olympic silver medalist turned really a global champion for digital equity. It's a pleasure to have you here. And we welcome back Marina Madale from MTN. She gave us a great perspective on what inclusion means, grounded in the realities on the African continent. And Jing Fang from UNESCO. She is a project officer in the science unit at the Regional Bureau for Science and Culture in Europe, where she has been really a champion for over a decade in fostering cross-border initiatives, among the one co-leading the UNESCO Huawei flagship project in revitalizing STEM education, and more important, digital literacy, which we'll talk about today, how to make sure on that. So we don't have too much time, so let us dive directly into it. Sylvia, as we enter what many described as intelligent age, and we heard a few hints today, how has the paradigm of digital inclusion shifted, particularly when we talk about structural barriers that determine whether someone is truly included in this AI-driven society?
Thank you very much, and thank you for that kind introduction of my past history. And I was, by the way, a swimmer, not a basketball player. Just people assume that very easily. I don't know why. No, I was just first going to say thank you. I'm very impressed, very grateful for Huawei. Again, you saw Dr. Cosma Sabasaba speaking at the beginning. I'm very grateful for, and congratulations on even outdoing your pledge on P2C. I also was part of the first group, the first team who developed the Generation Connect Youth Leadership Program, and we launched it precisely 2 years ago here at Mobile World Congress. So I'm so happy to see the announcement of a third cohort. And just impressed because, again, Gender and Youth Office, of all the references to youth from Bethlehem and also from Marina. So very grateful that you understand the role that youth are playing around the world. And I'm going to keep my notes because we don't have a lot of time and I tend to talk a lot. So as Delia mentioned, digital inclusion is undergoing a fundamental paradigm shift, and we move from the information age to the intelligent age. And the definition of inclusion itself is expanding, as many are saying. It's not only about connecting the people to the internet, but also empowering them to participate in a meaningful way in the AI-driven world. So the shift is from getting people online to ensuring that people are thriving online. And this includes, as I already mentioned, the importance of digital literacy, civic and economic participation, and ethical self-determination. Understanding how AI works, how AI systems work, what data they use, and how bias or misinformation can emerge. But there are also very important structural barriers. And while connectivity gaps persist, we have to be very careful that new divides are deepening around AI. And these are related to data inequality. AI relies on massive data sets, and regions or communities where there's little data representation have the most risk to becoming invisible. Compute and infrastructure gaps, because as you know, training and deploying advanced AI models require powerful cloud computing and energy resources, and we know that only a few countries really have it. the algorithm biases where without local diversity in the AI design teams and governance, biases may compound those social inequalities. And skills asymmetry, mentioned by Marina, the importance that's also about training AI, young people in AI skills. And there's a big gap around that. And decision-making execution, we need to have in the policy discussions around AI ethics, governance, and digital instruction, we have to have the youth. We have to have those vulnerable communities, women, also at the table. So it is about reframing. And as you know, ITU addressed several years ago to promote universal and meaningful connectivity, and that refers to quality, availability, affordability, security, what Marina said, the importance of about devices, skills are underlinked. So the shift is an institutional, and it's institutional inclusion. So we really are encouraging is about creating, deploying, and having governing intelligence systems so that they're able really that we can go to an intelligent era. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Jing, how do we then do it in order to ensure to go into the classrooms with this algorithmic thinking, artificial intelligence, and how is UNESCO helping its members to ensure this digital literacy, in particular also this future-ready competences also Marina was addressing early on?
Thank you, Delia, for the question, and thank you, Huawei, for the invitation. It is great opportunity to be here with so many excellent partners. Yes, so as also already mentioned by Sylvia, I would like to start it first with UNESCO normative work, which I think many of you may have heard. It's this 2021 UNESCO Open Recommendation on AI Ethics, which really set the foundation from the normative condition, and it really promotes a human-centered AI model. And then afterwards, UNESCO has also developed an AI Readiness assessment tool, which is to provide a comprehensive framework for the governments to better evaluate the AI readiness and whether, let's say, the country can develop an AI human-centered and also rights-based AI model. And then in 2021, again, UNESCO developed an open recommendation on open science, which in a broader sense set the condition and promote the open access data and scientific knowledge. So all these frameworks really, in broader sense, build a foundation for enabling environment from the different perspective of like data, institution, ethics, for better integrating emerging technologies, including AI, into education. And in addition, UNESCO has partnered with different excellent entities through a multi-stakeholder partnership, such as with Huawei, a very important partner of UNESCO. One example is just now Delia touched base a little bit. It was a UNESCO Huawei project relating to STEM education in Europe. The project was just concluded in later 2025 last year. The results were very much impressive. The project was piloted in 5 countries through 15 months duration. We benefited 13,000 students and piloted in 25 schools. And the content of the project, it's really to focus on STEM education by using the hands-on science and also the technological solutions, including AI-driven platform. And in the end, of open access and knowledge hub, we call it STEM Clearinghouse, was established to keep the outcomes and also the training materials to be available in the longer term. And also from this year, we UNESCO and Huawei, we are launching a new project on digital literacy, which if we have time, I may deep dive. And a third example, it's about global project, which is relating to open school for all. So UNESCO has partnered with Huawei to pilot this project in multiple countries from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jing. We can maybe come back to it later on that. Marina, looking into the business, what I really like to use, say, connectivity is crucial, but it's actually, as I mentioned before, how can we people up beyond the algorithm and what it means? You're connecting hundreds of millions of people across the MTN. You're not just sitting on the policy table. You're actually there where connectivity ends and community starts, because that's what it's all about. So if you look at the picture in Africa currently, you touched slightly on AI. Do you see it is seen as an opportunity, or do you see it as a risk?
Definitely as an opportunity. So I think it's a question. It's just a question of the approach, right? So I think very much we're starting to actually see a lot more use cases for AI, and I'll touch on a few. I think first we spoke about the rural connectivity aspect, and what you start to see within the network modernization efficiency space, you're starting to see AI helping to select greater energy efficient solutions. So that's real, and it's happening on the continent. So that's one example. The other one that you're starting to see is you're starting to see the debate between large language and small language model to say, okay, which one is going to be more relevant to the African continent? And we know that, you know, cultural preservation of local languages is a key component. And so we're starting to see AI acting as a major transformer to act as an online translator to help people that, you know, don't speak traditional, mainstream languages. I mean, the African continent has over 100 languages, you know, that you can imagine. And we need to do more where that is concerned. I think another debate that's taking place is around ethical use of AI. And you're starting to see more and more countries putting legislation in place, learning and lending elements from the EU's AI legislation, but are starting to say, but what does that look like for the African continent? And the other big debate is around when you look at ethical discrimination and bias being coded into AI products is obviously a major concern, because you now start saying you need more African coders that understand the context to remove some of the, you know, the bias and discrimination, which I don't think is deliberately put in there, but it's often subconscious, you know. So that's something that there's a huge debate to say you need AI to not discriminate at the end of the day. You need AI to also start putting in some of the safety measures, and I think that was a big debate. And I think one of the speakers earlier spoke about the fact that, you know, you're starting to see young people, and MTN last year we ran a campaign called Room of Safety to get young people talking about what's happening. And a lot of them were speaking about befriending AI chatbots and not knowing where to draw the line in terms of the type of advice they give. So it's what kind of safety measures do we put in place? You know, how do we work collaboratively with tech companies that are putting AI in place to put the right measures in place as well?
Yeah, so AI and it becomes more an intelligent duo. It's more an amplifier, as I mentioned. I have a friend, she's a couple therapist. She mentioned that 80% of her negotiations now is really hindered because people fall in love with the ChatGPT, because the ChatGPT tells you are right, and then the argumentation is becoming challenging. And I know from other friends they put in, is my husband or my spouse doing the right number of homework into this and there, and this cementing in, but what's the right framework? What's more lighthearted and so Sylvia, IT's normative frameworks and measurements indices were actually built for this connectivity era, but we are now in an AI-mediated world. So what are you doing with ITU in order to recalibrate those measurements in order to be the base so that business and education can flourish?
Thank you very much, and it's a very crucial question. And the recalibration of normative frameworks and measurements is at the heart of global bodies like the ITU to ensure digital inclusion in the AI-driven society. And we are trying to redefine this, that it's not, as you mentioned, just about access, but also about agency and how to include individuals and communities, their use, shape, and how they will benefit from AI safely, as you just mentioned, equitably and meaningfully. And ITU is building on its core digital development indicators, and it's linked to existing SDGs. And it was also good to hear earlier from Jeffrey Sachs about the importance of the implementation of the SDGs. And ITU remains this as an essential work to participate in an AI ecosystems is for basic digital skills that we need to measure that, devices, and also skills overall. But now recognizing those emerging gaps on AI, the ITU experts group on ICT household indicators, which is a long-standing group, has established a dedicated subgroup to design methodological standards for measuring AI interaction among individuals. And the surveys are capturing like who uses AI-enabled tools, for what purposes, what are the barriers, trust, cost, data privacy, literacy. And this will also help policymakers with the results of this information, how to assess whether AI technologies are amplifying inclusion or entrenching exclusion. So for us, also our ITU, it's a lot of GSMA data has been shared, but remember ITU facts and figures are very important. They come out every year. And just because youth has been mentioned so much, 82% of youth are connected around the world, more than the adults. But just to compare, 98% in Europe versus 50% in Africa. And we know that this is happening in these developed countries. So it's important to also review those breakdowns from ITU statistics that help us take those decisions around AI. And in addition, ITU is also building on its normative frameworks to embed equity, safety, and empowerment in its global AI governance, and it's including integrating human-centric AI principles into its standard guidelines and readiness, aligning itself with UN system initiatives like the high-level advisory body on AI in the Global Digital Compact, and of course also encouraging countries to use the ITU AI Readiness framework. So these are some of the things that are helping us to measure meaningful participation.
That's important. Jing, just quick thing on this. What do we need to do in the education space to what the education systems already do or emphasize, but also what the young generation needs in order to stay above the algorithm?
Yeah, thank you. So as a scientific officer, from my perspective, I think the most important shift is to move from simply integrating technologies, AI, to build a more holistic, human-centered AI readiness. So because nowadays, it is not sufficient for young people to know how to use AI or technologies. It is more important for them to explore and understand, for example, how this technology works, how to critically engage with these technologies, how to assess the outputs directly generated by AI, how to sense the potential risk. For example, as mentioned also by Marina, the misinformation bias, and also the ethical reasoning. So for me, I think stay above the algorithm, it means we need to build, strengthen the higher order, unique human capacities. Let's call it in this way. What comes to my mind, such as judgment, the value-based decision making, creativity, critical thinking. So these are all very important. And I would like to go back to some work which has been existing and continued ongoing. It's that you may heard that under Beijing Consensus, UNESCO has published AI and education guidance for policymakers. So in this document, it has already emphasized that AI integration need to serve for human learning and human development. And also in the same framework, UNESCO has also developed AI competency framework for teachers and for students. So in this document, it really emphasized the need to combine the AI literacy with critical thinking, ethical reasoning, human oversight, to make sure that human is in control of the AI rather than passively relying on them. So I think we are working on this direction, and this is the shift that I think that we will achieve in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Marina, what can we do in order to ensure there's still, as you mentioned, and we have mentioned a lot, there a huge gap of connectivity, particularly across the African continent. What can we do in order to catch up with the two, in order to ensure we deploy and help the people to be above the algorithm?
Thank you. I think obviously we need to accelerate and scale. I think it's easy to say partnerships will be the key. It actually just means, I think we need to figure out what works and scale it rather than the sort of replicating models and advancing things. The other one is you sort of start to scale and increase and bridge the connectivity. I think we also need to ensure that we don't leave people behind. Now, a simple thing like a person that is differently abled, most often than not, we know that a lot of device manufacturing companies try and put in features and so forth to try and cater for different people's needs. But if you go a step further, when you get online onto websites and all of that, there's a lot that they sometimes can't see, and that's why using AI-powered tools, an example that MTN has in the Skills Academy it's a widget, very simple. It literally took 2-3 hours for the coders to integrate into our platform. It's called Accessibility, and an individual can come onto the Skills Academy and be differently abled, and they just immediately open it up and say, you know, I have ADHD, and at a click of a button, literally all the features, everything changes. The colors are toned down and everything, and they're better able to use it. And so I think it's what can technology, what can AI do to bridge the gap of non-traditional needs? You know, it's very easy to think that, you know, that you've solved everything through an online portal, an online school, an online resource, but there are many that can't access it. So I think it's about being deliberate of inclusion by design in some of these types of approaches. Then you truly scale what works, fund and partner to increase, and then bring in those that are traditionally left behind.
Amazing on this. To close off, I would really like to ask each of you a sentence, not what you hope for, but you really know or think must happen in your respective area. Maybe Marina, I start with you. What do you think?
Inclusion for all. I would say inclusion for all. If we can achieve that by design, then everyone has a chance to be included. Women, girls, persons with disabilities, then inclusion for all is possible.
Sylvia, if you look at policy, international bodies, what is the commitment that they haven't done yet that is crucial for?
I think we have to leverage the current and the building of the AI ecosystem that is being established. ITU is a convener through different events and organizations, and for those who have not joined us, I hope you can come this year to the AI for Good Global Summit. Last year we broke records in participation with around 11,000 people, and this year we're going to host it again. And in addition, during the AI for Good Summit, we're going to have the Global Dialogue on AI Governance, which is part of the UN General's efforts. So we have a certain platforms and coalitions that, for example, the AI Skills Coalition from ITU, as I mentioned earlier, the ITU Readiness Framework. All these are different platforms and opportunities to collaborate and partner, and ITU as a convening, as a UN agency, is trying to emphasize that.
And Jing, if there's one sentence on what does the education system need to do in order to ensure in this AI mandated world we accelerate?
Yeah, so if it's one sentence, I would say we really need to make sure to empower our next generation to critically, meaningfully engage with new technologies and getting access to not only information, knowledge, but also participation, opportunity, and empowerment.
Great. I see we have policy, education, and market. There's one clear imperative. We cannot have AI and technology outrun inclusion. So we need the leaders to really facilitate, to help people to close the algorithm, and not how to deploy it, but really the human aspect in the world. Really thank you for this panel that closes the session on there. You're all champions of this, and we need you. And thank you to and the applause also for Huawei in order to ensuring there's another tech carers, because as we heard, this collaboration, partnerships, and building this ecosystem is so vital, because each of us can contribute to an inclusive future in order that we all stay above the algorithm. Thank you.
That's a very token gesture at the end. I'll hand over to Gavin. Thank you very much, Didi, and thank you very much to all the panelists there, and indeed to all the guest speakers and panelists throughout this forum. But thank you very much. Have enjoyed the rest of the week.